In this edition of Fifth Gear, speeding ticket scams, circuit racing on the cheap, and which is the best diesel super mini.
When the MGF was launched just over 6 years ago, the majority of the motoring press didn't exactly give it rave reviews. But, as usual, you ignored our warnings.
We love it.
And made it the best-selling roadster in the country. 42,000 have been sold, complete with their soft hydrogas suspension, numb steering and high chair seating. But for every happy owner, there was an unhappy one, suffering with poor build quality. MG, though, have responded to their critics and produced a new version, refreshed and rejigged, with all those niggles hopefully ironed out. Even the name's been tweaked. It's now called the MG TF. Which means the car's already got off to a bad start, because that new name has upset the owners and lovers of the original 50s MG TFs. But hey, what's in a name? What's important is it any better? Well, the layout of the interior certainly isn't. It's the same old mess as it was before, and this car's got £2.5 grand's worth of extras on it. The driving position isn't any better either. The steering wheel still sits on your knees and you still sit too high. But hopefully the roofs won't leak anymore. I'm sure the hydrogas suspension won't, because it's been replaced by good old-fashioned springs. Now that sounds more like it. And it feels more like it as well, because those springs have sharpened up the MG's manners and, with a quicker steering rack, provided a much sportier driving experience. This top-of-the-range 160 model is priced at a fiver under 20 grand, with 135 and 115 versions starting at 15,750. All of them have the same new, sharper look, with a more macho appearance, but the fact remains that there's only so much you can do with a makeover. And the other thing you notice is how the increase in torsional stiffness of the car has reduced all that dreaded scuttle shake that so plagued the old MGF. Here's a pothole in one of those, and everything feels like it's shaking itself to bits. So, better to look at and better to drive. The little MG sports car may have lost some of its on-road comfort, but it's gained a sharpness that promises a much more involving drive on a track. But sadly, it doesn't deliver it. From what felt a surprisingly stiff car on the roads, has become a bit of a soft lozenge on this racetrack. And that wind noise is driving me balmy. Only 85 miles an hour and I can hardly hear myself talk. My main problem is the fact that the car just understeers, and however much you lift off the throttle, it doesn't adjust like you want a car to do that's responsive. OK, if you have a chicane, you can fling it right and then left and have a bit of fun, but I want more. But what do I get? Just more understeer. Look, I can do the steering wheel like that through the corner and nothing happens. Now, there's no doubt that it's a much better car than the old MGF. But like most MGs these days, they just still haven't gone far enough. The driving position still annoys you on the track, and oh, just where's the excitement? This is definitely not a track day car for the real enthusiast, like the more hardcore Lotus Elise and Vauxhall VX220. But, to be fair, it's perhaps not supposed to be. So, overall, the MG TF is certainly a step in the right direction. It's a much better sports car than its predecessor. It's harder, it's more rewarding, but it's still not the one I'd buy for under 20 grand. Because, pound for pound, the Toyota MR2 is still quicker, more rewarding, and a lot more fun.
Speeding tickets. This year, 1 million people will open their very own little brown envelope. And with so many people getting booked, the usual barstool experts have been trotting out their usual advice. So we at Fifth Gear thought it was high time to separate fact from fiction. When most of us get a ticket, we grit our teeth, take the points and dutifully pay the fine. But some will do almost anything to get off the hook. Now it all begins with this. what's known as a notice of intended prosecution. And when some motorists get this through the post, you may be scandalised and horrified to learn that they're being a touch economical with the truth. By law, you must say he was driving at the time of the offence, but you'd be amazed how many people seem to forget. But amnesia is no defence. Say that you have a selective memory, and that'll mean that the car's registered keeper will get the points and the fine. Mind you, some people have been registering their motors in their newborn children's names. I mean, if Peaches doesn't have a licence, she can hardly have the points. Others say that it was their foreign pen pal who was driving, and sorry, but he's gone back home to Borneo. But that's no defence either. Believe it or not, the cops now have special units whose sole job is to track down these disappearing foreign friends. One cop we spoke to actually admitted that he'd even checked a speeder's alibi as far away as New Zealand. But perhaps naughtiest of all was the bloke who claimed that the offending driver was a mate who'd subsequently popped his clogs. What the bloke had done was pull a name at random out of the obituary columns. He got away with it once, but not the second time. Mind you, there are some people who'll put your points on their licence. Hard-up students will take the rap for you and have been advertising on the internet. The going rate is 100 quid per point. Don't get any ideas, though. I'm told the police have also invested in the internet. Then there's the I've been cloned scam. Some people have been saying to the police that it couldn't possibly be my car, officer. Someone's obviously tanking round in a motor identical to mine wearing my number plates. It's a feasible excuse, but the cops have since wised up. They'll enhance the Gatso photo and look for distinguishing marks to prove that it is your car. Convictions have been secured thanks to telltale bumps, scratches, and even dealer stickers. Now, lots of you have been tempted by internet tittle-tattle into paying your speeding fines with £61 instead of £60. The police are obliged to make a £1 refund, which of course you never cash, thus never closing their transaction and avoiding any points. Well, like most internet rumours, this one's complete moonshine. The police will just get very, very cross, stuff you into court, and you'll end up with more points and an even bigger fine. Not recommended. Then there's the debate over the right to stay stumm. The Human Rights Act says you can't incriminate yourself, so where there's a question mark over the driver's identity, people are keeping quiet. Most celebrated of all were the lads in the hot hatch, who, when pulled by the feds, all piled into the back seat. And when asked who was driving, they, well, claimed their democratic right to silence. But you can't rely on it. A recent Privy Council ruling in Scotland stated that one's human rights are not infringed. The courts do seem to be siding with the cops on this one. So most speeding ticket scams just don't work. But with so much misinformation ricocheting about, we wondered what other whoppers are doing the rounds.
If a Gatso flashes you twice, you've been caught. Simple as that.
Wrong. It's reckoned only 1 in 4 flashes results in a ticket, and Norfolk actually ran their cameras for 8 months without any film at all.
2 black holes in the back of a camera mean it's on.
Wrong. It's just an old type of camera that doesn't have covers over its locks.
You know, radar detectors are illegal.
Wrong. In fact, the Scottish police actually told us that they quite like the idea of detectors because they make people more aware of their speed.
Them new digital cameras, they can't read them fancy number plates.
Wrong. Just because the computer hasn't processed this automatically doesn't mean to say that the photos won't be checked manually.
If you don't hear nothing after 2 weeks, you've got away with it.
Right. If you're the registered keeper and haven't had anything through the post in 2 weeks after being flashed, it's pretty certain you're in the clear.
If you go through a camera at 160, it can't touch you.
Wrong. If you've disappeared by the time the second photo is taken, it's pretty certain you've been giving it some big-time beans. So the moral of our story, gentle viewer, is that there is no easy way to get off a speeding ticket. Consider yourself warned once again. Feeling
Feeling a bit washed out with your modern two-seater sports car now that everybody seems to have one? I don't know. What happened to those classic cars of the 60s? You know, the ones with the bouncy ride, wobbly handling and leaky roofs.
Well, some of them have been modernised, like this 1969 Triumph TR5. It's got all-new suspension with anti-roll bars, bigger brakes, a wood-free interior, an uprated gearbox and a GTI bashing 180 brake horsepower instead of its original 124. But all these mods come at a price.
Normally, a TR5 in good nick would go for around 12 grand. This one, with all its modifications, has finished up at a whopping £35,000. That's as much as a Porsche Boxster. 35 grand? Are you having a laugh?
Well, one TR specialist is completely serious. Racestorations in Gainsborough supplies high-tech for old Triumphs. Customers come from all around the world to give their machines a thorough update. And it's not just the rare TR5. All TRs can get a makeover.
So, does it feel like a 33-year-old sports car? Well, of course it does. When I got in this car, it scared the life out of me.
Whatever they've done to fettle it, it hasn't lost any of that wayward 60s character. It still follows the cambers in the road, and there's no power steering, anti-lock stoppers or traction control to help you out.
But having said that, all the tweaks they've plumbed into this TR5 make it feel like a tight, solid performance car. And that's what it is. It's a proper sports car. So the harder you drive it, the more fun you'll have. And that's where everything makes perfect sense. The steering will barrel you nicely into corners, and the brakes are perfect for scrubbing off that speed. I love it! And the reason why I love it so much is that it's a challenge to drive. Not saying it's tricky, you won't get the back end out on every roundabout, but you just have to think about what you're doing. Anyone can drive an MGF, not just anyone can drive a TR5. You have to be a bit of a hero.
This TR is a great classic remix. It was huge fun to drive for a day, but I reckon, in spite of the update, it's still too much like hard work to make you give up your modern two-seater.
To race on a championship circuit these days, you either have to be a relative of Bernie Eccleston or be very, very wealthy. But there is a way where you can compete and where glove ties and obscene bank balances aren't necessary. This is low-cost racing, a sort of DIY branch of motorsport. Apart from the chassis, you build the car yourself from bits of old Fords. And to keep the racing close, everybody has to use the same 1300cc engine. As you might have guessed, low cost, spelt L-O cost, means cheap motorsport. Now, when the series started back in 1999, the main aim was to build and race a car for under £1,000. 3 years on, some people are trying to remain faithful to the original estimate, while others have loosened, if not lost, their purse strings altogether. During our day at Brands Hatch, we met people who had lost the plot completely, spending as much as £6,000 just building their low-cost racer. But it is possible to build and race a car at this level for about £4,000, which really is tiddly nut and bolt money in the diamond-encrusted world of motorsport. Helen, how did you get into all of this?
Through my father. He's raced as a young man, and he's always wanted myself and my sister to get involved in it, and so we have. My father built his car first, so we had a platform to work on, and then we built mine as well. It took about 3 months.
What was it like to actually build it?
Brilliant. I've had to learn welding, cutting steel, everything, obviously building an engine, so it's been really brilliant, really good.
No, I'm in awe of you for doing that. Now, I could raise a few quid, rifle a scrapyard and get my spanners out, but frankly, I'm the sort of girl who prefers her nuts ready tightened. Yes, I've been lucky enough to find a youthful male who's race-prepped this car just for me. Tim, this looks more like a Lotus 7 than something you've knocked up on your mum's kitchen table.
Well, it's had a little bit more development than that. That's just because the series has been around for a while. But basically, if you've got a Mark II Escort engine, Ford Cortina uprights and a Sierra gearbox, you've got just about everything to build a car.
Was it fun to build?
A lot of fun.
Was it?
It's as much fun as it is to drive.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't think anything worse than spending hours locked in a garage making a car.
No, it was really good. And building your own car helps you when you have to fix it. You know what's where, how to do it, and how to get around the things that have gone wrong.
I'm sure building these machines is an absolute hoot, but it is called low-cost racing after all, so let's race. So, I'm away, but at the worst start in the world. This car is just overtaking me. How does that happen? Oh, God, here we go. First corner, paddock. In third, leave it in third. I've got the inside line. I'm being pushed from the back. Sod it, I'm going down his inside. Out the way, governor! I'm coming through! Having qualified a dismal 24th, I needed to get my toe down big style to save Tim any embarrassment. But I didn't have the same straight line oomph as some, so what I lacked in speed I had to make up for in commitment. So I've just hit someone. Good, fine, move, shifty, vamoosh. Get out of my way. Third into cars, sod you, I'll take you around the outside and clearway. Get out the bloody way and learn to drive round corners. Good girl, Victoria. She's got one. She's going to take the inside line up into Druid. Yes, we are going 3 abreast into Druid. And I've almost locked up, regained it, but I've got 2 places. Oh, go the girl. Oh, this is such a giggle. Oh, I can't believe how competitive everybody is. Oh, come on! Come on! Halfway, I'd moved into 16th spot, but I wasn't stopping there. Challenged in the straight line speed department, I put all my faith in a late braking manoeuvre. My God, what a monster! I hope the boys got that on video. They did. Oops. These brakes are a bit lethal. I do apologise to everyone. Sorry. I finally finished 14th and got a little excited. Oh my God! Wicked! Now, all I had to do was to reunite Tim with his slightly battle-scarred car.
Oh, nice one. It's a bit floppy now, isn't it?
It'll polish out. I'm sorry, Tim.
Don't worry about that. It's only body work. That's nothing. Bloody good race. Bloody good race.
Oh, it's mega. I'm very chuffed. The winner looked pretty chuffed too, and it's all for love. There's no prize money. Low-cost racing probably means nothing to Bernie Eccleston, Michael Schumacher, or anyone in F1. And that's because you can race one of these, you can overtake and even win. How refreshing, how low cost. This is Tim Burt from Norfolk, and he's cracked one of life's great problems. Namely, how do you get all your loved ones and all their clutter into one vehicle? MPVs can handle the people, but then there's no room for luggage. Estates can swallow the luggage, but then you'd have to leave Gran and Grandad at home. So what is Tim's solution? It does 42 miles per gallon, seats 11, has bags of space and costs just $3.5 grand. So what is it?
It's a post bus.
Tim's post bus spent its working life in and around Huntingdon and retired from service with just 39,000 miles on the clock. Since then, he's racked up a further 6,000 and reckons it'll be good for 200,000 more with sufficient TLC.
I did go and have a look at a couple of Galaxies and I looked at a Nissan Serena, but that didn't really suit us as a family in that we didn't really want the electric windows and all the extras that came along with the modern MPV. And a friend of mine told me that they were selling off ex-post office stuff at auction in Norwich. So I thought I'd wander along and have a look and see what they were selling off. But I went along a couple of times and eventually this thing came up and I put my hand in the air and ended up with it.
The post bus easily accommodates the extended Burt family, and there's even room for a couple of friends. Tim claims they don't miss all the creature comforts, but there must be some drawbacks.
The vehicle is noisier than an ordinary car. The handling is not what you would expect. Its origins of the vehicle are a van, so clearly it's going to be van-type handling. It won't fit in some multi-storey car parks, so you've got to make sure you know the height of the vehicle before you try and get into one. Other than that, it's been a very good buy. We've just come back from Cornwall, and it's so convenient to be able to load up all the luggage rather than having to pack them into trailers or top boxes. And if it happens to be raining, for example, picnic in the bus is easy, whereas doing that in the car was much more difficult.
So there you have it, a first-class solution. And I bet he never gets a parking ticket.
You're in the market for a car that's small, practical and cheap to run, but you've got plenty of wedge, somewhere between 10.5 and 12 grand, so the choice is huge. Well, I'm here to give you the steer into one of the most overlooked sectors in the market, the diesel Super Mini.
The diesel versions of the new Ford Fiesta, the Seat Ibiza and VW Polo represent very different answers to a question none of us thought to ask.
Let's get this out of the way. These three can all hit 55 plus miles to the gallon. They're all a little bit more rattly than the petrol version, but not half as bad as they used to be. And each one's as practical as any small hatch can be, which is very.
They do not smell like a chemical factory, smother everything in plumes of sticky black smoke, or chug like asthmatic steam trains. Only 20% of Super Mini sales carry diesels in the UK, and it's time we started to realise just how good they are. Get over the witch hunt, you might just be surprised.
So we start with the Polo, the accepted daddy of the Super Mini underworld, and I'm immediately put off by the fact that it looks like a Lupo that's been fed too many pork scratchings for comfort. You can imagine the meeting in which they said, "We shall make this car cured." But personally, I think it looks like a constipated Teletubby.
It's very hard to fault in the driving stakes though. This Mark III Polo chassis is one we've already seen in the Skoda Fabia, and as ever it gives that really big car feel. The throttle's a bit woolly, but a great ride and fine steering make the Polo a very confident car to drive.
The 75 brake horsepower 1.4 litre engine pulls happily enough and doesn't seem to wobble everything about in the cabin. The Polo gives you a big car quality feel, even if it is ugly.
But that's not true of the Ibiza. This chunky little motor has great looks that are a lot less boring than both its competitors. Check those funky rear lights and the aggressive front end that's hiding a whacking great 100 brake horsepower 1.9 litre engine. And that comes with great waves of torque, making it quite fast both on the motorway and in town.
It's faster than both the Polo and the Fiesta, but in making it sporty, Seat have lost all the refinement because it's far too stiff. Add to that a gearbox that kind of doesn't want to let go of the gear stick during changes, and it's all looking fairly dodgy. The interior is quite boring as well, it's lacking flair. It's made of this big swathe of plastic, which isn't going to age very well at all. So, if you're looking for the best diesel Super Mini, you need something that combines the funky looks of the Seat with the refinement of the Polo. Which brings me to the Fiesta. Now you're thinking that I'm not going to like this because it's dull and it's boring and it's only got 65 horsepower. Well, you'd be wrong, because this is the surprise, so pay attention.
This thing looks great, like a kind of Focus Mini-Me. You'll be used to it in a week, which is either good or bad depending on how you look at it. The Fiesta has all the best bits of the other two, but without the drawbacks. It's pretty enough like the Ibiza, has most of the big car feel of the Polo, and enough personality of its own to give it the edge.
The interior is nice and chunky, with lots of bold shapes and this easy-to-use big button stereo. It steers really well and rides brilliantly, and even though it's not the sportiest or the fastest, it is the best. Oil-burning Super Minis used to not be worth considering because they were noisy, slow and dirty. But things have changed. These are three quality cars, and just about a good enough reason to hang out with truckies at the local diesel pump.